This is Pastor Larry, and welcome to From the Front Lines. Today is Thursday, July the 2nd, 2020. I usually do this on Friday, but tomorrow there is a limited staff. My topic is a question: is this the end? And I'm speaking about all the bad things we hear. This is the end of America. This is the end of Western civilization. This is the end of who knows what. There is a lot of gloom and doom, and some of the media outlets love to talk about the end. Hundreds of thousands dying from the coronavirus, a vaccine never being found. All kinds of weird things happening to people because of the coronavirus, some of which I can't even say. But why are they so negative? Because I think it's a great opportunity to blame President Trump. So as I start, I want to have a true-false quiz. If you've been to school lately, a lot of teachers, professors love to give a true-false quiz. True or false? Our world is getting increasingly more secular and hostile to the gospel. True or false? People don't care about one another any longer. True or false? All hope for the United States is gone. True or false? All black people in America hate America. Well, what say ye? True or false? My answer to all these questions is false. Our world is not getting more secular. Our world is not getting more hostile to the gospel. Now, no question, there are some pockets of it where they're really freaking out over the gospel, but I'm talking about the world. It's not true that people don't care about one another any longer. It's not true that all hope for the United States of America is gone. None of that is true. And it's certainly not true that all black people in America hate America. That's not true at all, although we get the impression that it is. You know, some people, when I talk like I'm just talking, and I'm certainly not a dominionist. I want to make sure you understand that. I'm a premillennialist. But some people would remind me that there have been more Christians martyred in the 20th century than in all of the other previous centuries since the time of Christ. And so they would say, Pastor Larry, what are you going to say to that? We got you. A lot of people are dying. They're killing Christians. Okay, well, here's what I'm going to say to that. You can only have Christian martyrdom all over the world because there are Christians all over the world. You ever think of that? Why are they killing so many Christians? Because there are Christians all over the world. And they're active in evangelism. They're active in preaching and worship. They're teaching families. They're teaching men. They're teaching boys and girls. So, martyrdom is a horrible thing. But before you can have Christian martyrs from all over the world, you have to have Christians all over the world. We have a church in Pakistan. I was privileged to start that. We have 2 Christian schools there. And, one of the first impressions that I had of Pakistan is that there are many minority religions in Pakistan. But guess what minority group is being persecuted and slaughtered more than any other group? I'll tell you which one it is. Christians. Do you know why? Because Christians are doing what God has called them to do. Not to hide, not to build a bunker, but for example, our group on Good Friday, they have a parade down the main street of Toba Tek Singh. The pastor preaches and so on. They're bold for the gospel of Christ. But the other religious minorities that are not being slaughtered, they're hiding. Okay, they don't worship with drums and with singing and with all kinds of things. So despite the persecution all over the world, in many cases, biblical Christianity is growing. It really is. Asia is one of the real hotspots for growth, even though there's so much persecution in Asia, especially in China. And then I guess the second most hot spot where there's a lot of growth is Africa, and then after that, South America. So, I know there's opposition. I know there's persecution. I know there's a lot of nonsense, but let's face it, a lot of good things are happening. Furthermore, just think of how gracious God has been to us by giving us a president like President Trump. Now, I don't trust, in Trump like I forget God and I'm trusting in Trump. I don't do that. But I believe that President Trump is God's gift to us. And so if we praise the Lord for a wonderful gift, I don't see that there's anything wrong with that. President Donald Trump is the most pro-life president we've ever had. He's strong on religious liberty. He's strong on respecting the rights of Christians. There's so many good things. I could do a whole show on that. But, Ronald Reagan was pro-life, but he was not militantly, publicly, openly pro-life like Donald Trump is. So many times Ronald Reagan in a time of a march, Right for Life, he would show up on TV or make a video or something like that. But Donald Trump goes right there publicly out in the open. I think this is wonderful. We have to thank God for Donald Trump. As a matter of fact, the fact that there are so many evil people who hate him is telling me that he is the right person. Now, what about our vice president? Well, on June the 28th, Vice President Pence spoke for about 30 minutes at First Baptist Church in Dallas, Texas, where Dr. Robert Jeffress pastors. And Mr. Pence told the church, "Hold fast to Jesus." The vice president said this, and I'm quoting him, "I believe with all my heart that if we will but hold fast to him, we'll see our way through these challenging times. We will restore our nation's health, we will renew our freedom, and we will inspire people across the land." That's our vice president saying that, close quotes. Vice President Pence also gave a marvelous testimony of how he was a 17-year-old boy. It was a rainy day. It was an outdoor concert and preaching, and he was sitting on a hillside in Wilmore, Kentucky, when the Lord spoke to his heart. He went forward. He received Jesus Christ, not out of guilt, but out of appreciation for what Jesus had done for him. That's our president and our vice president. Now, what about Melania Trump? She recently gave a talk, and I really believe that she's a very, very elegant lady. She's very intelligent. I think she's beautiful, but she's not cheesy. She speaks, I think, 5 or 6 languages, but in her talk, she said that she can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. When have we had a first lady like that? And I know probably a lot of people hate her, but I think that's marvelous. I think America has been so richly blessed in the last 4 years. Can you imagine what it would be like if we had that wicked witch Hillary Clinton in the last 4 years? We wouldn't have all the trouble we're having now. You know why? Because the whole country would have gone down. We are in a fight because we're in a fighting mode. We have good leadership. We have godly men and women. And friends, I think that's a good sign. So I could go on and on talking about the good things. Now, a week ago or so, there was a white police officer who was trapped in a burning car. And guess what? A black man rescued him from this burning car. Let's look at some other things that I think are really very encouraging. Dr. Ben Carson, he's the black brain surgeon, had some things to say about the Black Lives Matter movement. He said, quote, "It has a Marxist ideology," close quotes. I think he's absolutely right. Dr. Carson said the things on the BLM website are, quote, "antithetical to the American way. BLM is taking advantage of the situation," close quotes. Dr. Carson's absolutely right. He's a black man. Dr. Carson said that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. worked for a color-blind society, which is actually what Martin Luther King Jr. did. But Dr. Carson pointed out that we are now basing everything on color, the color of a person's skin. Quote, here's what Dr. Carson said. He said, "When I open up somebody's head, there's nothing in there that says this is a white person or a black person," okay? Close quotes. He's absolutely right. I've often said, if you skin me, I skin a black person, we're all alike. It's just skin deep. And you know, we've said that there's only one race. There's not a whole bunch of races. There's only one race. We're all made of one blood. Here's some other things that I want to mention. There was an Oregon police officer who rescued a baby from a burning home. Can you imagine a police officer? Quote, an Oregon police officer has been commended for his heroic deeds after he ran inside a burning building to rescue a baby, close quotes. Good things are happening. It's only the riots and the BLM wackos who get the top billing. But listen, there's lots of good stuff going on. I don't have time to tell you all the good stuff. You know, if a pastor messes up and runs away with the organist, and she's not his wife, that'll be front page. But if, like where I pastor, Trinity Chinese Baptist Church, if two people dedicated their lives to Christian missions, that wouldn't be on the front page at all. But that's good news. That happens. Let me give you samples of some more of the good things that are happening, things that you don't normally hear about in the progressive media. Here's another thing. It's an Iowa community in Jewell, Iowa. Listen to this. It's raised over $200,000 to save its only grocery store. Grocer Nick Graham was going to close down. That was back in January. Couldn't make it. He made the announcement, but there was a group of people who wanted to save the store. And so they organized a 5-member board of directors, created Jewell Market LLC, and started selling shares for $400. Listen, that little town, to preserve that grocery store, raised $233,000. It's not true that people don't care. There are people who do care. Does everyone in America hate the police and think we ought to defund the police? Well, you would think so. Nobody wants the police. They're bad. Well, Breitbart reports, quote, anonymous donor gives police department $50,000 to buy a patrol car, close quotes. The police department in Madison, Alabama got a huge surprise. A check was sent to Mayor Finley with a note, quote, Dear Mayor Finley, please see enclosed check in the amount of $50,000 to be earmarked to purchase and equip a new police car for the city of Madison. While I would like to remain anonymous, I would ask it that it be made public that a citizen of Madison has a desire to show support to our police department and thank them for their service. Sincerely yours, anonymous donor, close quotes. Now here's another one from Breitbart. This is the headline. Pittsburgh police detectives and a good Samaritan stop a man from jumping off the bridge. This man was depressed and he was going to commit suicide. And so here the police and a good Samaritan, the civilians, stopped this from happening. Now here's something we don't want to ignore. Were you ever deeply troubled by the way some cities and municipalities want to close down churches and limit the number of people who attend, while at the same time allowing these massive protests of thousands of people without masks, and they weren't social distancing? And you think, what's going on here? How come Mayor de Blasio in New York City is allowing all these protests, but he wants to close down some churches? Have you ever felt, for example, that Mayor de Blasio, that Democrat, he's an evil man, by the way. He really is. You know, he wants people to obey him, but he wouldn't obey the president, the federal government's requirement that he turn in all the illegal immigrants or aliens. He said, well, New York City is a sanctuary city. Well, anyhow, this man is a hypocrite, plain and simple. Well, guess what happened? Something good happened. U.S. District Judge Gary L. Sharp issued a preliminary injunction on behalf of 2 Catholic priests and 3 Orthodox Jewish congregants in Brooklyn, represented by the Thomas More Society. It's a Catholic a legal society that comes to the aid of churches, Catholic and Protestant as well. The judge said, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, he's the pro-abortion governor, wants to kill a lot of babies. Attorney General Letitia James and New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio exceeded their executive limits by limiting worship services while condoning mass protest. Praise the Lord for Judge Sharp. He said, these people sent a clear message that mass protests are deserving of preferential treatment. Thank you so much, Judge Sharp. So, as I close, I want to make a clarifying statement. I am not saying that all of these things, these positive things, and there are many more, I'm not guaranteeing that they're going to bring a lasting change. I'm not a prophet. I believe there are prophets today, but I'm not one. That's not my gift. So I'm not saying God told me America is going to be great, so on and so forth. I really don't know how all of this will turn out. But one thing I do know is that we need to be encouraged, and we also need to be challenged. Let's never forget that there's no guarantee. 2 Chronicles 7:14 says, if my people, that's you and me, that's the key. So I know God is giving us hope. He's encouraging us. All is not lost. There is hope. So I want to close, and I want to challenge you to be men and women of prayer. The Bible speaks to you and to me, if my people. You know, a lot of people are waiting on God, but I think God is waiting on us. 2 Chronicles 7:14, if my people. Now that's not good Calvinist theology, but I think it's biblical. So please be fervent in prayer. Talk about Jesus. Support President Trump. Support pro-life issues. The killing of babies, millions of them, black babies. I mean, you know, if black lives really mattered, they'd be protesting Planned Parenthood. Well, they kill millions of black babies. So friends, we're called to be obedient. We're called to be faithful. And as I close this Thursday, have a wonderful July 4th weekend. Thank God for all the great things that He's done in America. And I believe if we stand tall, there are a lot of great things more that God will be doing in, for, and through America. God bless you.